Greetings, my name is Tim Johnson. This is Recovery, Strength, Hope and Courage. I want to talk about how I got through the fear of going into withdrawal and getting through withdrawal today, because I often talk, I'm later on in my, I'm 18 months into my sobriety now, but I never forget how difficult it was to stop using drugs and to stop drinking, and getting into withdrawal, actually making that effort, making that switch, because I was so frightened of it, so fearful of it, and it sort of got into my head this week, because I've had a couple of emails recently, and I had one the other day from someone who is really struggling with making that leap and going into withdrawal, because they're frightened, they're very fearful of the effects that the withdrawal will have on them, and what they're going to go through during it, whether they can do it, whether they've got the strength to do it, the effect it's going to have on their family, how they're going to live their day-to-day life around it, to have a job and and a family and all the rest of it. And this is 99% of people have these fears. It's perfectly normal, because if you've been like myself, I mean, I went through particularly, and I want to talk today about opiate withdrawal more than alcohol withdrawal. The alcohol withdrawal had its own particular challenges, and I'll come on to that in another video. But the opiate withdrawal, I think I found the most physically and psychologically difficult to do, and I'll tell you why. Over the years, I mean, I used opiates heavily, of every sort, and if you look back at my previous videos, and also I've done a video on, I don't want to go into too much depth today about actually the planning and all the planning that goes into withdrawal, because I've got two videos on the planning and getting through of opiate withdrawal and early recovery in the back catalogue of videos. So have a look at those if you want more detail. This is about getting into it and preparing for it and facing the fears of it, and overcoming those fears, and how I overcame those fears, if you like. And I think those fears were based for me on my experiences of opiate withdrawal in the past, because I'd had some horrendous. I tried everything. I mean, I tried cold turkey. I tried when I was in rehab. When I went into rehab, I had a very quick Subutex withdrawal, which was like reduced dose Subutex over a 7-day period, which was medically supervised. So I've done it that way. I had 2 years on Suboxone, tried to take from that. That didn't work for me. Tried cold turkey again. When I was under the supervision of my family. If you look at my life story, I talk about that. And I didn't have to work. I was in enclosed environments where I was being looked after and given food and love and support and all the rest of it from my family. And I'd been through that sort of withdrawal, which was, but they all had their particular challenges, but they all had the common theme of massive psychological discomfort and an unpleasant experience, and it sticks in your memory, because there's no getting away from it. If you've been on opiates for any length of time, as I was, and if you're watching this, probably you are, or and you're wanting to change. I mean, the key to change anyway is to let go of fear. So first of all, I mean, what I did, and I talked about in my other videos about turning what I know into what I do, because I've always had knowledge, but so first of all, it's looking at what's going to happen to you in withdrawal and understanding it, because there's nothing. Fear is a phantom, isn't it? We create these pictures in our mind of how, even if it wasn't particularly bad at particular withdrawal, we create this image, and it multiplies in our brain, and the fear, and it gives us this sort of paralyzing fear, because if we don't deal with it, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, until it stops us doing the things we need to do and stops us taking action. And inaction creates, terror. It's simple as that. The fear just multiplies and multiplies until you're too scared to do it, because you think, I'm not going to be able to move, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm going to let my family down, I'm going to let myself down, I'm going to have to feel pain, I'm going to go through all those discomforts. And we all know that opiate withdrawal it is not comfortable, but you have to pay the piper. You know that if you want a life the other side, and this is what I had to convince myself, that then I have to pay the piper. I have to go through this. So I had to make myself understand that there was nothing to be feared, just understood. I just had to understand what was happening to my body, because I'm one of these people who needs to understand, because if you feel uncomfortable feelings, if you feel pain, and we know there's all sorts of pain comes with opiate withdrawal. I mean, insomnia, restless legs, the sweats, the toxicity and the stink coming out of your body, the pain in every joint in your body, the crushing depression and anxiety, and I'm not painting a pretty picture here, but you have to be realistic about it. Some of these things are going to happen to you, but then again, they happen in different degrees to different people, and every withdrawal and every person is different. So you might not experience all of those things. You might experience just some of them. Some people get a massive sickness and diarrhea and all the rest of it. You don't want to eat, and massive lethargy or may just get one or two of those symptoms. It's the luck of the draw. But the thing is, what I needed to understand was what was actually happening in my body. I had to educate myself first, which I'd never really done before in all the previous withdrawals, because I suppose a lot of the ones that I did, the internet wasn't as available, YouTube wasn't available. So prior to doing this withdrawal, this last one, which was my final opiate and will be my final opiate withdrawal ever, which was about 20 months ago now. Prior to that, about 3 or 4 months before I even set a date to do this, I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to make the change. And I've said before, you understand that you need to change. You recognize you need to change. Then you recognize you have to change, because if you don't change, you're going to die and lose everything. And I recognized all of this. And then the next thing was to seek help to change. So what I did, I knew to conquer the fear, because the fear was holding me back. I didn't want to go through this bloody pain again. I didn't want to go through this crushing lethargy again and not be able to function and let my family down, do all the rest of it, and I just didn't want, and I was frightened of it, and I convinced myself, that I was totally paralyzed with fear about it. But the fear comes from uncertainty. So I had to make myself understand, that it wasn't going to kill me, that everything that was going to happen to me during that withdrawal was a medical phenomenon and was my body healing. I had to understand that it was my body fixing itself and trying to reach homeostasis, which is balance. Because all that withdrawal is your body shunting out the toxicity and beginning to heal in every aspect of it. And a massive part of that healing is in your brain, because opiate receptors sit on your neurotransmitters in your brain. You're not producing, when you stop taking opiates, you've stopped producing serotonin and dopamine, which is where the crushing depression and anxiety comes from. And also your noradrenaline starts to your adrenal glands have stopped functioning when you're taking opiates. They suddenly boost into life. Massive adrenal bursts coming through, which causes the insomnia, which causes the jumpiness and the anxiety. Your hypothalamus in your brain is not working properly, so your temperature control's all out, and that's trying to balance. So you sweat, which gets rid of toxicity. See, all these things I discovered when I researched it. And before I went in to withdrawal, it was about knowledge, support and preparation, those three things. So gaining knowledge, first of all, and understanding what was going to happen to my body, but most importantly, why it was happening to my body. And that every moment of discomfort was taking me to a place of wellness again and happiness again. Understanding that, first of all, that was the first thing. So I watched loads of videos, Ryan Donnelly, lots of other YouTubers that made videos, people that I still watch today, Rockin' Roberta, Waylon, Leisha, all these people, and also jumped onto groups as well, where there was a lot of advice and support. So I knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. And I also looked at science, a lot of research on the internet, and a lot of research about the physical and mental effects and why it was happening, of the the medical and scientific reasons that opiate withdrawal was happening. So I understood it going into it. And then preparation, knowing what I was going to go through, knowing that for the first 5 or 6 days, or maybe even 2 weeks, I had to prepare for battle. So I went into it, and all of this helps get rid of the fears, because you don't. I prepared food for 2 weeks in advance, like blended smoothies and all this sort of stuff that was tasty but full of nutrition, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to prepare or cook or feel like going out the house and buying anything to start with, or certainly having the energy to do that. But I knew that every mouthful of this stuff was full of goodness and vitamins and minerals and micronutrients and stuff that was going to help heal my body. So that was all in the fridge and freezer, prepared 2 weeks ahead. Lots of clean clothes and clean bedding, because of the state you get into and the smell, and knowing that I wouldn't fancy doing laundry and stuff like that. Having loads of support around me, people knowing that I was doing it, not in living with me, but people who were at the end of a phone and would come if I needed them, or would give me words of support and advice. My family in particular, obviously, but people in the groups as well, and having all that support in place and that preparation. And then obviously doing all the things I talk about in that other video, and have a look at that. But this preparation was key. So knowledge and preparation. So I knew I was going in. I knew what to expect when I was going in. I knew why it was going to happen, and I knew that I would be able to cope with it and not starve to death or whatever. I knew that a week or so's time, I'd probably get out into the sunlight for 15-20 minutes. All these things are in the other video, so I won't go into those in great depth. So knowledge and support and preparation, those three things, and they helped me face this anxiety, and fear, because you have to ask yourself, what is it you fear? What do you fear? Is it the pain you fear? Is it the discomfort you fear? Is it the fear of being sober and living life without opiates? Because that's another massive fear, isn't it? But that's something you have to face that, because it's a phantom, isn't it? Because until you get through withdrawal, you won't be able to face that anyway. So you need to take one step at a time, at one day at a time. So knowledge, preparation, support, and get through withdrawal. Face the fear of it, face the uncertainty of it, because you've given yourself knowledge, because the fears come from the uncertainty. You've made yourself certain it's what you want to do. You know, you're 100%, you believe in yourself, 100% you know you have to do it, and you want to do it. This is another massively important thing. And you've got the knowledge, and you've got the power, and you've got the strength to do it. And then the fear just disintegrates. You have to step into it. You have to face it and move towards it, not away from it, because you'll be paralyzed if you do, and you'll never do it. And then you'll just you'll die. Action cures fear. Inaction creates terror. Simple as that. So that's really all I wanted to say from this. It's just a short video to push you into thinking, really, that you can do this, you can do it, and it's so worthwhile, trust me. You know in your heart that it is. You know in your heart you need to do it. You know that for you, but most of all for your family, well, most of all for you, but for your family, for your children, for your spouses, husbands, wives, parents, friends, your career, your finances, your health. There's not one aspect of your life that this won't improve doing this. So you've got to be positive. You've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to face your fear, because they're irrational. Fear is a phantom. It doesn't really exist. It doesn't really exist. It exists in your mind, and it multiplies, and it paralyzes you. Don't let it paralyze you. Go for it. And if you need my help, my email's at the bottom of these, and I'm happy to help and support any of you that need help. It's the best thing you'll do in your life, trust me. Much love to you. Carpe diem. See you today, and I'll just leave you with a little saying. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Don't forget that. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Carpe diem. Be that person. Believe in yourself. Go for it. Seize the day. Much love to you all.